The first thing I felt when I came back to life was the plastic edge of the hall pass pressing into my palm. Not the hospital monitor from the room where I died. Not the wet tiles of the old-school corridor where my head had struck the floor during the evacuation. Not my mother's voice breaking through a phone speaker while someone tried to explain unfortunate timing and blocked access. Just a hard rectangle of laminated yellow plastic, warm from my grip, stamped in black with the words Authorized Movement. Hall Pass 18, Candidate 52, Archive Station B. A red cord looped around my wrist. On the back, in blue marker, the external supervisor had written the time, 10:14 a.m. I was 17 again, standing outside the senior examination hall at Larkfield College, halfway through the Wickham Evidence Reasoning Scholarship Final, with 20 minutes remaining before my supervised archive station closed. In my first life, Mrs. Celine Varr, Deputy Head of Curriculum, Scholarship Convener, and mother of the girl who needed my movement record erased, stopped me beside the corridor clock and whispered, "Give it up, Elodie. Hall passes look suspicious during a scholarship exam." I gave it to her. 3 minutes later, I was found in the archive corridor without a pass. My movement was logged as unauthorized. The evidence card I was assigned to collect went missing. My entire second section answer was disqualified for unverified candidate movement. Her daughter, Margot, submitted the same archive evidence with a perfect record and won the scholarship. Years later, after I became the kind of compliance officer who checked exit routes and sign-out sheets because one missing pass had changed my life, I died when a locked side door trapped staff during a fire drill that turned real. My last thought as my legs failed under smoke and panic was not brave. It was procedural. Hold the pass. Then the corridor returned. The yellow plastic was still in my hand. Mrs. Varr was walking toward me in cream heels. And this time, I wrapped the red cord twice around my wrist. A hall pass sounds childish until an adult uses its absence to call you dishonest. At Larkfield, hall passes were not bathroom jokes or flimsy slips teachers forgot to collect. The Wickham final used controlled candidate movement. Students completed Section A in the exam hall, then selected candidates were called to supervised evidence stations in the archive corridor, the media room, or the mock interview booth. Each candidate received a numbered hall pass showing where they were authorized to go, when they left, when they returned, and which external supervisor signed the movement log. The pass did not simply permit walking. It connected your body to your work. Without it, the corridor cameras showed a student leaving an exam room and entering a restricted area. With it, the same movement became evidence handling procedure. That difference, I learned across 2 lives, was the difference between scholarship and suspicion. The Wickham Evidence Reasoning Scholarship was Larkfield's proudest humanities prize. Full final year tuition. A placement at the Civic Records Institute, a university mentor, a summer program in public policy and archival research, publication of the winning case review in the Larkfield Journal. For students whose families had alumni ties and spare money for enrichment camps, it was a prestigious challenge. For me, it was the only way I could remain at the school without my mother adding another cleaning contract and my father selling the tools he still used to repair neighbors' radios. The exam was designed to test whether candidates could handle evidence as it arrived in stages: a written case file, a live archive retrieval, a reliability assessment, and a final recommendation. It was supposed to reward caution, documentation, and the ability to resist convenient narratives. That made what happened almost funny, if you enjoy jokes told by locked doors. My name was Elodie Sen, and I came from a house where permission slips mattered because adults outside our family often pretended not to remember what they had approved. My mother kept every school email in folders by year. My father kept receipts in envelopes labeled with the month and wrote serial numbers on appliances before lending them to anyone. My younger brother Pascal once lost a library note and cried for an hour because he thought the school would charge us for a book we had already returned. That was the kind of family we were. Not paranoid, just experienced. Paper protected us when politeness did not. My mother used to say, "If they let you through a door, keep the proof they opened it." She said it about excursions, fee extensions, work rosters, rental inspections, repair notices. In my first life, I forgot it in the exact corridor where it mattered most. Mrs. Celine Var looked like the kind of woman who had never needed a pass for anything. Tall, elegant, always wearing pale blazers and narrow heels, she moved through Larkfield with the confidence of someone whose name was already in the meeting minutes before she entered the room. She spoke softly, never hurried, and had a habit of touching a student's elbow when giving advice, as if kindness required contact. Parents described her as gracious. Teachers described her as efficient. Students learned that her gracious efficiency usually meant someone else would absorb the inconvenience. Her daughter, Margot Var, was Larkfield's perfect scholar. Glossy hair, perfect attendance, debate prizes, archive club leadership, polished essays about justice written in handwriting so neat it looked printed. Margot was clever. She could read a case file beautifully if the key document was already in front of her. But she was weak at retrieval. In practice exercises, she misread archive labels, confused source versions, and panicked when evidence was not where she expected it to be. The Wickham final required one live retrieval from Archive Station B. That was the part she needed help surviving. In my first life, Section A gave us a case about a fictional school board decision to expel a student journalist for publishing leaked cafeteria health reports. The initial file suggested the journalist had violated confidentiality by posting internal inspection notes online. We had to assess whether disciplinary action was justified. I wrote a careful preliminary finding. The student may have breached process, but the public interest dimension could not be assessed without verifying whether the reports showed active health risks or merely administrative drafts. Then candidates were called one by one to retrieve a sealed archive card. My card assignment appeared on the screen. Candidate 52, Archive Station B, Box 4, Card 7, Health Inspection Addendum. The external supervisor, Mr. Hale, handed me the yellow hall pass at 10:14 and logged my exit. "Keep this visible," he said. "Show it at the archive desk. Return with it and the sealed card." I nodded. I understood. The pass was on a red cord. The card assignment was printed on my movement slip. It should have been simple. Mrs. Var intercepted me halfway down the corridor. I remember the sound of her heels first, then the soft touch at my elbow. "Elodie," she said. "One moment." I stopped because teachers can make stopping feel like obedience before you decide. "Yes." Her eyes went to the hall pass. "You should not carry that so visibly." I looked down. Mr. Hale told me to keep it visible. He means during movement check. In the corridor, it can look odd. Odd? As if you're drawing attention to special access. I frowned. "I'm going to Archive Station B." "Yes, and we want that to appear routine." She smiled. "Give it to me. I will note your movement at the desk." I held the pass tighter. "But the archive supervisor needs to see it." "I will tell her you are coming." "The instructions say candidates must retain the pass." Her smile remained, but her eyes cooled. "Instructions are written for ordinary cases. This is a scholarship final. Presentation matters." Then came the line, smooth as glass. "Give it up, Elodie. Hall passes look suspicious during a scholarship exam." In my first life, I hesitated. I remember that because my body knew. The red cord was looped around my wrist, and for 1 second my fingers resisted untying it. Mrs. Var noticed. Her voice softened. "Your bursary review is next week, isn't it? Your mother's cleaning contract with the East Campus is under renewal. Pascal's place in the junior writing program is still pending." I would hate for a small display of mistrust to be read as poor judgment. She did not say, "Give me the pass or I will hurt your family." She did not need to. Powerful people prefer levers that leave no fingerprints. "I am helping you look composed," she said. So I handed her the pass. The corridor felt wrong immediately. My wrist felt naked. At Archive Station B, the supervisor asked for my pass. I said Mrs. Var had it. The supervisor frowned and checked her sheet. My name was there, but the pass number had not been scanned at the archive desk. She called the main hall. No answer at first. While we waited, another candidate arrived with a pass, collected their card, and left. I stood there, growing smaller by the second. Then the archive supervisor reluctantly let me retrieve box 4, but noted candidate arrived without pass. Card 7 was missing. In its place sat a blank spacer. The supervisor sealed a discrepancy note, but by then my movement looked irregular, my assigned evidence was gone, and my answer could not use the addendum that changed the whole case. Later, Mrs. Var's statement said I had given up the pass voluntarily because I was flustered, and then proceeded to the archive without waiting for escort. Her signature appeared on a late movement note I had never seen. Margot's record showed a clean retrieval from Archive Station B, Box 4, Card 7 at 10:19. The health inspection addendum proved the cafeteria reports described active contamination, making the journalist's disclosure ethically defensible. Margot used it. I did not. She won. The first life after that narrowed around doors. My bursary shrank because of exam conduct concerns. My mother's contract renewal stalled. Pascal did not get into the junior writing program. I left Larkfield at the end of the year and finished elsewhere, still good at evidence, still careful, but with a new silence around my own memory. I could not explain the hall pass without sounding foolish. Why did you give it up? Why did you walk without it? Why didn't you insist? People who ask those questions imagine power arrives wearing a villain's cloak. Sometimes power wears cream heels, touches her elbow, and says she is helping you look composed. I ended up in compliance work because injury often chooses the job before ambition does. I worked for a public records office, then a university exam board, then a safety and access consultancy that audited movement logs in schools, hospitals, and government buildings. I checked sign-out sheets, door access reports, emergency passes, visitor badges, evacuation tags, and restricted area logs. I became the person who asked, who held the pass, so often that colleagues teased me by leaving yellow sticky notes on my desk. I did not mind. The world is full of disasters caused by adults treating movement as informal until blame requires formality. I died during a fire drill at a training center that had been converted from an old school building. The drill became real when a faulty electrical panel filled the east corridor with smoke. The access control system failed. A side door that should have opened with an emergency release stayed locked because the override key had been signed out by a contractor and not returned to the marked hook. Staff tried to redirect people through a back hall, but the corridor narrowed near an old storage alcove. I had been auditing the evacuation tags that morning. When the alarm sounded, I grabbed the movement clipboard without thinking because old habits can be heroic or stupid depending on whether you survive. People pushed. Smoke thickened. Someone shouted that the side door was locked. I ran toward the alcove to check the override box, slipped on wet floor paint, and hit my knee hard enough that my legs buckled. I remember falling, the clipboard sliding away, yellow visitor passes scattering across the tile. One stopped against my hand. Authorized movement. My vision narrowed around it. Hold the pass, I thought. Then I was back in the Larkfield corridor, red cord around my wrist, Mrs. Var's heels clicking toward me. This time, I did not stop walking until I was beneath the corridor camera. That was the first thing. The second was looping the red cord twice around my wrist. The third was raising my hand with the pass visible before Mrs. Var could touch my elbow. Mr. Hale? I called back toward the exam hall. My voice carried. Mrs. Var's step slowed. Mr. Hale, the external supervisor, looked out from the hall doorway. Candidate 52? Confirming I must retain hall pass 18 until I return. His eyes flicked from me to Mrs. Var.
Yes.
Keep it visible. Do not surrender it. Beautiful.
Public.
Too late for her to make the request private. Mrs. Var smiled, as if that had been her intention all along. Of course, she said. I was merely checking the candidate's route. Archive Station B, I said. Box 4, Card 7. Mr. Hale nodded. Proceed. Mrs. Var walked beside me anyway. Elodie, she murmured, still smiling. There is no need to announce every procedural detail. It helps the record. It makes you look anxious. Movement records are supposed to be visible. You are being rather literal. It is a pass. Her smile tightened. Give it to me at the archive desk, then. I will streamline the scan. No, the word came out clear. The corridor seemed to lengthen around it.
No.
I will show it to the archive supervisor myself. Hall passes look suspicious during a scholarship exam. Only if the candidate is not supposed to have one. Her eyes cooled. Do not be difficult. am authorized to move. Your family's arrangements with Larkfield are not as solid as you think. There it was. The old lever.
Bursary.
Contract. Pascal. Your mother's work is not on this pass. Your brother's program is not on this pass. Your future here requires me to keep this pass. We reached Archive Station B. The archive supervisor, Ms. Rowan, sat behind a narrow desk with a scanner, a movement log, and a tray of sealed evidence cards. I held out the pass before Mrs. Barr could speak. Candidate 52, Hall Pass 18, Archive Station B. Ms. Rowan scanned it.
Beep.
Logged at 10:18. I felt my ribs loosen. Box 4, card 7, I said. Correct. Ms. Rowan handed me the retrieval gloves and pointed to the supervised shelf. Mrs. Barr's hand moved toward the pass hanging from my wrist. Not a grab. A light reach, as if adjusting the cord. I stepped back. The red cord pulled tight against my skin. Ms. Rowan looked up. Staff do not handle candidate passes during retrieval. Mrs. Barr's fingers stopped midair. Slowly, she lowered her hand. Her grip on the leather folder she carried loosened a fraction. Not enough to drop it. Enough for me to see the first failure. Box 4 was exactly where it should be. Card 7 was there this time, sealed in a small, transparent sleeve. The label read Health Inspection Addendum, Cafeteria Water Contamination, Active Risk Confirmed. I did not open it.
I was not allowed to.
I brought it to Ms. Rowan, who scanned the card, signed my retrieval slip, and attached it to the pass cord with a small clip. Return directly to the hall, she said. Do not surrender either item. I won't, I said. Behind me, Mrs. Barr inhaled quietly. The walk back felt different in the second life. Not victorious. Heavy. Every step was recorded now.
Corridor camera.
Pass scan.
Card scan.
Return log. Evidence moving with a visible path. Mrs. Barr kept pace beside me until the exam hall door. Elodie, she whispered, voice lower now, less sweet. You are making enemies over a pass. I looked at the yellow plastic in my hand. Then they are very fragile enemies. I pushed the hall door open. Mr. Hale scanned my return at 10:22. Candidate 52 returned with Hall Pass 18 and Card 7. He read the card label, sealed it into my Section B packet, and wrote the time on the log. You may continue. I sat at desk 14 and opened the authorized addendum. The case changed exactly as I remembered. The cafeteria reports were not drafts. They documented active contamination in the water line, and the school board had delayed release because repairs would disrupt donor week. The student journalist had breached confidentiality, yes, but disclosed a genuine public health risk after internal warnings were ignored. My final recommendation became clear. Disciplinary action should be withdrawn, whistleblower protections considered, and the board's suppression of the report investigated. I wrote like someone whose evidence had arrived with a heartbeat. Margot's trouble began when her archive card did not exist. In the first life, she had card 7. In this one, I had it scanned and clipped to my pass. When Margot reached Archive Station B later, Box 4 contained no duplicate. Her assigned card was different. Card 5, a parent complaint email that supported caution but did not prove active risk. She returned pale. During her final recommendation, she implied contamination was confirmed but could not cite the addendum. Professor Lale. There was always a Professor Lale somewhere in these lives, or perhaps every fair exam eventually summoned one. Asked, which evidence establishes active contamination rather than administrative concern? Margot said, the inspection record. Which card? Silence. Card 7. Professor Lale asked. Margot looked toward her mother. Mrs. Barr stood near the back, one hand gripping her leather folder. Her grip loosened again. The visible collapse came after the exam, in the movement log review. Because I had called out the retention rule publicly, Mr. Hale flagged the corridor interaction for audit. Ms. Rowan's archive log showed Hall Pass 18 scanned properly and Card 7 retrieved by Candidate 52. The camera showed Mrs. Barr walking beside me and reaching toward my pass at the archive desk. Then the system showed something worse, a pre-written movement correction in Mrs. Barr's account. drafted at 10:10 before I even left the hall. It read, Candidate 52 surrendered pass due to anxiety. Movement to be noted manually. Redirect card 7 if needed. Redirect card 7 if needed. A sentence trying to become a theft. We were in the side review room when Professor Lale read that line aloud. My mother sat beside me, still in her cleaning uniform because she had come straight from work after my message. Kept pass. They're reviewing logs. Come if possible. Mrs. Varr sat across the table with Margot. Mr. Hale stood by the screen. Ms. Rowan sat near the door, archive log open in front of her. Professor Lale read the drafted correction once, then again, slower. Mrs. Varr's face stayed composed until the words Redirect Card 7 appeared enlarged on the projection. Then the color drained from her cheeks. Her hand, which had been gripping the edge of the table, loosened. Her fingers slipped. The folder on her lap slid sideways. She tried to stand, perhaps to recover dignity, perhaps to interrupt, but her legs failed before the sentence did. Her knees bent suddenly, and she dropped back into the chair, hard enough that the wooden legs scraped the floor. Not a faint, not an injury. A body losing its performance for 1 second because the record had become stronger than the story. Margot whispered, "Mom," and Mrs. Varr did not answer. The official findings came quickly because movement systems are cruel to liars when they work. Mrs. Varr had attempted to obtain a candidate's hall pass during a controlled evidence retrieval stage, referenced family vulnerabilities in a coercive context, drafted a false movement correction before the candidate left the hall, and prepared to redirect a key evidence card if the pass record became unclear. Margot was not accused of personally stealing card 7, but her attempted argument relied on evidence she had no authorized access to in this life, so her score was reviewed and reduced. She placed 6th. I placed 1st. The scholarship announcement happened the next morning in the archive classroom, which felt appropriate and slightly petty in a way I appreciated. Professor Lale stood beside a table holding the sealed movement logs, the archive cards, and my hall pass 18 in a clear sleeve. The Wickham Scholarship assesses evidence reasoning, but reasoning cannot be separated from access integrity, she said. This year's winning candidate preserved a movement record, retrieved the assigned evidence card correctly, and revised her recommendation according to authorized evidence. My mother's hand covered her mouth. My father, who had arrived with his work jacket still damp from rain, gripped the back of the chair in front of him. Pascal whispered, "The pass won," and my mother nodded like that was a legally sound summary. The 2026 Wickham Scholar is Candidate 52, Elodie Sen. I walked to the front holding myself very carefully because part of me was still in another corridor, another life, giving up the pass. Professor Lale handed me the certificate, the civic records placement letter, and the sleeved hall pass. "Keep this," she said. "It proves you were exactly where the record says you were." I nearly cried then, not because of the scholarship, though that mattered, but because the sentence repaired something I had never been able to explain. I was where I was supposed to be. I had permission. I had proof. Mrs. Varr resigned from scholarship administration before the report reached families. Officially, she stepped away to protect program continuity and family privacy. Unofficially, she had tried to remove a candidate's movement proof and drafted a false correction before the candidate even moved. Larkfield changed the rules. Hall passes were wrist-banded with tamper clips. Movement corrections required external dual signatures. Staff with relatives in the exam could not access archive station routing, and candidates were told in writing that no internal staff could collect or hold their passes. Boring reforms. Beautiful reforms. Every future hall pass became harder to surrender. Margot found me weeks later outside the library. She looked different without the scholarship halo. Still elegant, but less certain where to place her hands. "I didn't know she drafted that note," she said.
No hello.
They never began with hello after their mothers were caught. "Did you know she wanted my pass?" I asked. She looked down. "I knew she said your movement record might be a problem." "For whom?" Her mouth tightened. "For me, I think."
Honest. Ugly.
Useful. I didn't ask because I wanted card 7. In practice, I kept missing the archive clue. She said if I couldn't retrieve the right card under pressure, The exam was testing logistics instead of reasoning. It was testing both. I know that now. She swallowed. When Professor Lael asked which card proved contamination, I wanted to say yours. But it wasn't yours. No, she looked up.
I'm sorry.
Not enough. But I am. I did not forgive her out loud. But I said, next time, retrieve your own evidence. She nodded. I will. We did not become friends. But months later, during a mock review, Margot stopped a teammate from citing an uncollected document. If it isn't in our packet, it isn't ours, she said. Growth is sometimes just learning to respect the boundary that once excluded you from stolen proof. The scholarship changed my family practically first. Tuition cleared. My mother no longer needed to take the extra cleaning contract at East Campus, which pleased all of us because she had never liked their supervisor. Pascal got into the junior writing program through an external place after Professor Lael wrote a recommendation, and he began carrying permission slips in a folder as if training for litigation. My father replaced the broken antenna on his old radio and told everyone the hall pass had better signal than most administrators. I entered the Civic Records Institute placement and discovered that controlled movement was everywhere. Who accessed the archive box, who entered the evidence room, who signed out the file, who escorted the student, who held the visitor badge, who opened the side door. Institutions love to say trust matters. Records show whether trust survived contact with incentives. Years later, I became an access integrity auditor for schools, courts, and public agencies. My work sounded boring because which is one of the reasons it mattered. I reviewed visitor logs, movement passes, restricted archive routes, exam hall exits, evidence room access, evacuation tags, and door control records. I trained staff to understand that a pass is not a favor. It is a bridge between permission and accountability. If someone holds it for you, they hold your explanation. If someone takes it privately, they can move the story of where you were. I kept Hall Pass 18 framed in my office beneath a small label. Authorized movement is not suspicious. Clients thought it was a slogan. It was a scar with lamination. The training center fire from my first life did not kill me in the second. Because I recognized the failed movement system during an audit, I flagged the missing override key return, the blocked side door, and the narrow corridor before the drill season. The facilities manager said the probability of simultaneous failure was low. I asked him if he wanted that sentence printed on the evacuation map. The override key system was replaced with a break glass release and digital return log. The corridor was cleared. During the electrical fault that matched the day I once died, people exited through the side door in under 3 minutes. Nobody fell besides scattered passes. I stood outside in the rain afterward, watching the head count tags clip back onto the board, and had to sit on the curb because sometimes survival empties your legs after the danger has passed. I saw Mrs. Barr years later at an education compliance conference. Of course, she had reappeared. People like her rarely vanish. They become advisors in the language they once weaponized. She was listed on the program under Student Movement and Assessment Trust. I did not attend because my patience is not infinite, but she found me near the registration table. Older, still elegant, still in pale colors, though lower heels now. Elodie Sen, she said. You have built quite a reputation. I keep passes visible. Her smile tightened. That day at Larkfield was complicated. You drafted a false correction before I left the hall. Her face thinned. I was trying to manage a sensitive evidence route. By removing my proof of authorization. Margot suffered after that. Margot learned to retrieve her own card. You are still unforgiving. No, I said. I am still logged out and back in. Her legs did not give out this time, but one hand reached for the edge of the table beside her. Memory has balance problems too. My mother eventually opened a small document, tutoring, and school form shop near the train station. She called it Hall Pass because our family stopped pretending subtle names protected anyone. The shop helped students organize permission slips, appeal documents, scholarship evidence, fee forms, access requests, and exam accommodations. My father ran a tiny radio repair counter in the back, and Pascal designed the logo, a yellow pass on a red cord, drawn like a medal. On the wall above the copier, my mother painted, "If they let you through the door, Keep the proof. Students came in embarrassed because they had too many forms. My mother would say, "Good. Doors like paperwork." Now, when I train students for evidence exams, I begin with the movement record. Not the argument. Not the conclusion.
The pass.
Where are you authorized to go? Who logged the exit? Who logs the return? What object travels with you? What happens if someone asks to hold it? What story can they tell if you no longer have it? A hall pass is not childish. It is the institution admitting in plastic that you are allowed to be where you are. Do not hand that admission to someone who benefits from calling your presence suspicious. The simple version is true. I was reborn. I held my hall pass. She told me to give it up. Her legs gave out. But the simple version cannot hold the red cord around my wrist, the archive station B scanner beep, the first life shame of standing in a restricted corridor without proof, card 7 waiting in box 4, Professor Lael reading redirect card 7 if needed, Margot realizing evidence that was not retrieved was not hers, or Mrs. Var dropping back into the chair because the movement log had stronger legs than she did. It cannot hold the girl who gave up the pass because she thought obedience would protect her. It cannot hold the woman who learned that authorization must stay in your own hand. If someone ever tells you to surrender the pass, badge, slip, receipt, ticket, keycard, wristband, or a record that proves you are allowed to move through a door, do not argue about whether it looks suspicious. Ask who will scan it. Ask who will sign. Ask how you will prove where you were when the story changes. Keep the cord around your wrist while the request is still visible. Let them explain why your proof needs to leave your hand. And if their legs give out when the log shows what they plan to redirect, do not call it revenge. Call it authorized movement. Hold the hall pass. Walk the route. Return with the record.